Hello, this is the RPG Crawler, and welcome to another Indie Game Friday, the series where I take a quick look at an independent role-playing game. This week we're going to take a look at Dex, a 2D side-scrolling open-world RPG. One might use the term Metroidvania and not be far off. Developed and published by Dreadlocks Ltd, it was released on Steam way back on May 7th, 2015, and recently came to GOG.com as well. It is currently available on Steam for $19.99. Before we really get into it, I need to flat out say that I don't play many sci-fi RPGs, although I suppose Cyberpunk only barely qualifies as such. I'm also not terribly good at 2D side-scrolling fighters or shoot-em-ups, although I adore both. It's important to note, because while this game is an RPG at its core, it also has a Metroidvania-style combat and a shoot-em-up style hacking minigame within it, which gave me problems in terms of just how far into the game I could get for this review. With that out of the way, Dex starts with our protagonist, Dex, being awakened at her place by a strange vision of someone who tells her that she's going to be hunted and must leave. A quick tutorial on going into augmented reality and interacting with hacking nodes ensues, followed by a sequence of combats, basic puzzles, and interactions as she makes her way down to the alleys and the sewers below. Then she goes off towards the contact that she's been given. From there, the story expands as she discovers she's some sort of techno-messiah with the ability to hack without actually connecting to the network. Okay, it sounds goofier in summary than it is. The story, such as it is actually fairly well placed at first, at least until the massive info dump / reveal, and even that kind of leaves you wanting for more. It's as solid a plot hook as you could want to set up a Cyberpunk RPG without getting too dreary and depressing. So let's take a look at the gameplay surrounding the system. The basic exploration is pretty straightforward. It's a standard 2D side-scroller, with Dex able to move about, climb onto things, make melee attacks, ranged attacks at enemies, interact with objects and people. The usual things you'd expect from a Metroidvania. On top of this, however, is a place called Augmented Reality. By hitting the Augmented Reality button, you pause time and can see various computer nodes that control the various things around you, from security systems to vending machines. Each has its own effect when cracked, though that is through one of the two versions of the hacking minigame. As you proceed, you'll find NPCs that give more information or side quests, storage caches of various items, first aid stations where you can regain your health, and the occasional focus dispenser where you can regain focus, etc. You can access other sections of the city by finding the proper exit from the map. Some maps have multiple exits, and although everything's in a 2D plane, it's not actually that difficult to envision the connections between the areas once you get used to them. Unlike a proper Metroidvania, where the entire region might be hostile territory, not every area is laden with enemies. In fact, most of the combats take place in designated sublevels, buildings, passages, etc., which you can access during certain combat sequences and quests. It pays to explore each level as thoroughly as you can, however, because certain encounters and access routes may require clambering up through different levels of a particular area, onto rooftops and into higher, or in some cases lower, tiers of the city. As you get experience, you level up, which grants you skill points. Skills are used to unlock different tiers of capability in several categories. Endurance, which raises your hit points and allows you to install more upgrades. Melee, which improves your ability to fight and grants certain combo mechanics. Ranged, which improves your ranged attacks in various ways. Hacking, which improves your focus, energy, and other things related to the hacking minigames. Lockpicking, which allows you to pick certain locks. Charisma, which unlocks certain dialogue options. AR, which allows you to affect other things during the augmented reality sequences, including humanoid opponents. And Barter, which discounts the things that you buy. The first four are your major combat skills and have 6 ranks each, while the last 4 are interaction skills and only really have 2 ranks. The combat controls themselves are okay-ish. You can block melee attacks, roll out of the way, roll past a target, or run up behind a target and perform a takedown before they realize you're there. There's a lot of options, honestly, but really, you'll probably want to only face combat when it's strictly necessary. Although you do gain experience to unlock talents, you start out surprisingly fragile, and there's other ways to gain experience, through lockpicking, breaking security, quests and interactions and so forth, that are substantially less lethal for you at the beginning. Hacking nodes and systems is a major part of the gameplay, and opens into its own minigame, or rather, two minigames. The first takes place when hacking a node in Augmented Reality. As soon as you start, you are locked onto the screen that you started on, and are confronted with the node itself with an active area around it, and various viri which come active in the background and start swarming towards you. The objective is to stay within the active area of the node and build up the influence over it, while fighting off the waves of viri and defense programs in a shoot-'em-up style game. You can momentarily leave the active area to dodge things, but your influence counts down, and if it gets back to 0, everything resets and you have to start again. During this sequence, you have focus and energy. Focus is basically your hit points during any hacking situation. If you lose all your focus by getting hit, you're knocked out of the hacking interface and take a decent amount of damage, so it can actually kill decks. Your energy is used to power your weapons in the hacking sequence, and it regenerates over time. The second sort of hacking occurs when you have access to an actual system terminal, in which case you have a similar shoot-'em-up style interface and mechanic, but an entirely separate map. In these systems, you can have labyrinthine corridors to navigate, firewalls that bar entry, turrets that shoot back or produce viri to hunt you down, fields that block your way, etc. You also have the ability to pick up certain things in this sort of area, everything from focus refills to stray caches of money. And you might have several file nodes to unlock in an area, either to search for a particular bit of information, or to sometimes key up optional information that you might not otherwise have found out. Later in the game, you get the ability to add cybernetic upgrades that augment your capabilities. Sadly, this is where I hit a brick wall during my playtime. To get this, it requires you to crack into a warehouse and go to retrieve the neuroweave that allows you to sustain further augmentation, and quite frankly, my reflexes just weren't up to the task of getting it done in time for this review. Oh, believe me, I tried, and I had fun doing it. Objectively, I knew exactly what needed to be done in what order and the tactics to go about it, but as I said, I'm terrible at shoot-'em-ups and Metroidvania-style combat alike, so I just wasn't going to be able to get it done in a reasonable time for this video. And understand, this is just in the beginning of the game, so things are undoubtedly only going to get more challenging from there. In terms of graphics, sound, and so forth, this game is gorgeous. The settings are beautifully detailed, and the animations are fluid. The pixel art is extremely well done. The music is both genre-appropriate and immersive. I genuinely found the game an enjoyable experience just based on the graphic, music, and sound design alone, and that's not something I generally prioritize. So, what are my complaints with the game? The action is a little challenging, for me at least, although that could just be because I'm terrible at the sorts of games that the underlying mechanics are based on. Also, open world game as it is, it just didn't seem all that big from what I explored, and after finishing recording and writing most of this review up, I did look back and see what others had mentioned about it. It turns out that, apparently, the game just isn't that long. It's still a solid block of playtime, don't get me wrong, but if you're expecting something that's going to keep you occupied for weeks and weeks or whatever, it's probably not going to be the best choice. Still, it's an extremely solid game, and I'd like to see more of this sort of thing. It looks like the developer is trying their hand at an entirely different genre for their next game, however, so I suppose that an immediate follow-up is probably going to be right out. Still, it would be interesting to see more games using this kind of look and feel, this kind of open-world 2D game with a solid RPG underlying behind it. I think I'm going to wrap it up here. For now, this has been the RPG Crawler with Indie Game Friday. If you like what you've seen, remember to like, comment if you have feedback, and subscribe for more RPGs. The link to purchase this is going to be in the description below. So until next time, take care and goodbye.